So BIONICS was a really large, multi-center, multinational randomized clinical trial that was comparing EluNIR versus what is state-of-art new generation drug eluting stent, which is a Resolute stent. The point of the study, and I think it was quite brave from the company, is to start with a pre-CE mark, pre-FDA approval study, being not in a selected population. In this case, they decided to include a more comer, almost all comer population were included really complex lesion, complex bifurcation, CTO, left main. And this is quite unique because usually when you do a pre-CE mark study or pre-FDA study, clearly you are going to select the patient, and this was not the case. So I have to compliment to the company to be so brave. Most probably this was due to the fact that they were really confident with their product, having a really long history in the stent world. And this gives also to the investigator a lot of confidence, because when a company approaches you to do a pre-FDA approval, pre-CE mark study and go more comer or comer, it means that they are really sure about the quality of the product. So it was 1,919 patients that were entered into the study, randomized, as I said, to EluNIR versus Resolute. The primary endpoint was target lesion failure. That was encountered. This is, as always, is done in contemporary DES and non-inferiority study. The non-inferiority was met. There was exactly the same number of target lesion failure, 5.4% in both groups. Regarding then safety endpoints, stent thrombosis was low considering that we are dealing with complex patient, complex anatomy, and complex lesion. So there was no difference in stent thrombosis. We are talking about definite and probable between the two groups, and it was 0.4% in EluNIR versus 0.8%. And this is important, there were not late stent thrombosis reported for the EluNIR. So there was a good performance of the stent at 1 year, and there was also a good safety profile of the stent at 1 year that clearly is really encouraging. There was a pre-specified subgroup analysis with angio follow-up that was presented at the PCR 2017. And it demonstrated also that at 13-month angiographic follow-up, the late loss was only 0.22. It was non-inferior to the late loss of Resolute, and clearly having such a low late loss was really encouraging for performance profile, but also for safety profile. It was also performed follow-up IVUS evaluation that demonstrated that the no-intima hyperplasia was quite low and was non-inferior with EluNIR as compared with the Resolute. The major reason, clearly, I think, is the engineering that is behind the product. It's a company that worked for so many years in this field, so it's very expertise in designing coronary stent. This is a latest generation. It's a thin cobaltum chromium platform using a Limus family analog. So clearly, when you combine a good platform with the cobaltum thin strut stent with a good antiproliferative drug, as it was used in the study, you are expecting to have comparable results, at least non-inferior to which is the state of art of the major performer DS that are in the market today. I have to say that we really use EluNIR in complex lesion subset. I mean, if I remember, around 50 patients we enrolled between the two studies. There were really some maybe extreme case, and I remember personally some case that I performed where most for sure first generation drug eluting stent of other company I'm sure would not perform so well. So I could really touch the very good deliverability of this device, and this is through the balloon tip, most probably, in really tortuous vessel where most probably when you do a pre-CMARC study, you are not going to do. So the translation of this technology in our real-world practice was met, because we really included very complex lesion anatomy, and the deliverability was not a problem at all for this kind of device. Yeah, it was an intriguing concept that was introduced by the company and their engineer. The concept is that the elastomeric properties give the capacity to the polymer itself to be less damaged during stent expansion. This was shown in some in vitro studies that were conducted, showing that there was less damage to the polymer coating of the EluNIR as compared to the others. But I think that it has to be translated into clinical results, and it has to be translated with the long-term clinical follow-up and large patient data set.